for Monday, May 4th to order. I'd ask everyone in attendance to join us in singing our national anthem.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to the National Film Board for the images of our country, and to an alumni of our very own Grande Prairie Boys Choir for the audio. We'll move into the adoption of the previous council meeting minutes. Can I get a motion for that set of minutes, please? I see Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Mayor Evan. I move the council adopt the minutes of City Council meeting held on Monday, April 20th, 2020 as presented.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Minhas. Are there any errors or omissions, anything that we've got to check or amend before we adopt them? Okay, seeing nothing, then I will call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. I think that carries unanimously. And then I'd look for a motion for the adoption of the agenda. Councillor O'Toole.
Mayor Given, I move that Council adopt the agenda as presented.
Okay, thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion or debate on the agenda? Again, seeing nothing, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That looks unanimous. And that brings us to our open delegation portion of our agenda. This is an opportunity, one of two opportunities that we have at every regular council meeting for anyone to attend and present to council. We had two delegations let us know that they wish to present. The first was a representative from the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers. I believe we have Mr. Chris Montgomery from CAPP here. Chris, if you want to turn on your microphone and turn on your camera, we would like to welcome you to the council table, as it were.
Good. Thank you very much for having me. And I do have a presentation. Is it okay if I share my screen for that?
It is,
or
absolutely.
You want to proceed with that? Yeah, okay.
Yep, no, go ahead. You can share screen.
Give me a second here, and I'll make sure I get the right app up. There we go. Sorry about that. I had to give permission to Zoom to take a look here. So thanks again for having me. I'll just have a few slides. I'll go through them pretty quick here. Just want to start by giving you a sense of what the local industry looks like. One of the things we've been working on at CAPP for the last probably 3 years has taken us to build this is the ability to look at industry on a sub-provincial geographic scale. And so what I've done here is I've just, combined, production and other stats for the county and the MD. Of course, there are a number of ways, Grande Prairie serves a pretty large region, including into British Columbia. So a number of different ways we can cut this, but this is how I did it for today. If you have a desire to see it on a different scale, happy to pull something else together for you guys. In the county, you have 59 active operators and 134 in the MD. There obviously could be, there obviously is overlap between the two. And I will say here, active operator does not necessarily mean a company. What it is it a license holder, and a license holder could be a subsidiary of another company, or it could be a joint venture project, for example, that's operating under a numbered company, but is controlled by a couple different producers, for example. So far this year, there have been just over 700,000 meters drilled in those two jurisdictions. That compares to 2.82 million meters drilled over the course of 2019. Over the last 12 months, we've averaged about 80,000 barrels of oil a day. There's an error on the next bullet. It should be 4.1 BCF, so billion cubic feet of natural gas in those two jurisdictions, which is just over a third of the entire provincial production. And about 78.1 billion barrels of condensate a day, which is the vast majority of the condensate in the province, and of course is what is driving the economic activity in your particular region. There are 11,900 wells exactly, and in addition to that, there are about 5,800 inactive and suspended wells, and you have 78 of the province's 6,200 orphan wells, so a very small number. Not really a surprise, again, given the resource that you're dealing with in that particular region compared to elsewhere in the province. Obviously the industry is going through a very troubled time right now, so I'll just give you a bit of a picture of that. Talk about what we're working on with government, and then I'll end with, with what is the good news to the degree that there is some. So April was, kind of the hit of the results of COVID and government shutdowns around the world. Over the course of April, it's expected, once numbers are in, that world demand for oil will be off about 30 million barrels a day. That's from a pre-COVID average of about 100 million barrels a day, where it has been for about a year or so. So in April, we lost about 30% of the world's demand for oil. We expect increased demand as restrictions open up, but everybody's projecting that over the course of the year, we're going to be off by about 10 million barrels a day. World supply is expected to drop and is dropping. OPEC++ met a few weeks ago, so that's OPEC plus Russia plus a number of North American jurisdictions met and agreed to about 12 million barrels a day of cuts. A good number of that came from OPEC. What is coming from North America, and this won't be a surprise given that we're a market-driven economy, it was understood at those meetings that any cuts from North America were estimated based on market forces alone and wasn't as a result of government intervention in those jurisdictions. You saw markets react actually negatively to that agreed supply cut, and that was because there was a recognition that that's not enough to deal with the current situation that we're in. And so we are faced in the short term with limited world storage capacity, which is a significant concern at this point in time, both here in Alberta and in North America, as well as elsewhere. If we hit that storage cap, we're going to have to see pretty dramatic shut-ins, and we'll see dramatic price impacts as well. Hopefully we don't get there. Companies and governments are trying to find solutions to increase storage to the degree possible. And you're also seeing, of course, economic restrictions start to be lifted, which helps on the demand side. But if we hit that cap in the coming weeks, we're going to see significantly more pain than what we've seen today. So far, just as far as publicly announced cuts go from publicly traded companies, Canadian companies have announced more than 400,000 barrels a day in production cuts for oil. And again, that's market driven. We're likely to see more, as time goes on. And we're in the middle of, the first quarter reporting period where companies are making announcements in this regard. As far as capital spending, at the start of the year, we are forecasting just over $34 billion worth of expenditures by the industry. Obviously, that's been cut significantly. We've already seen announced capital cuts in the neighborhood of $7.5 billion. We're now projecting that total industry spend over the course of the year will be around $25 billion. Just want to note, again, it's relevant to the local region. Canadian condensates have also fallen steeply. And again, that's what's driving a lot of the activity in your region. And we have seen condensate trade at negative prices over the last little while. And so as a result of that, we're not seeing a lot of new gas production, but gas producers within their portfolios are prioritizing the dry gas assets. And that's because those condensate prices have fallen, but also because gas prices have actually held at where they were trading over the course of the winter, when we would normally expect prices to come off quite a bit. And that's because as oil production is being shut in Texas, a lot of associated gas in the United States is being shut in as well. And that's a big driver actually of the gas market in the US. And so a lot of that's coming off, which is helping to support gas prices. As far as our work with governments go, we've been working in three areas. One is making sure that our industry is recognized as an essential service so that we can continue to provide energy to the country. That involves our supply chains, our people, and of course, increased health and safety measures as well. The second area is really around liquidity and job preservation. Obviously, with prices where they're at, nobody is in a positive cash flow position at this time. And so that's our number one concern as an industry right now, is making sure that companies have enough cash on hand so that we don't see significant failures over the course of the next few months. And so we've been talking to governments about the need for credit facilities and the deferral of payments on a number of payments to government and agencies. And, the one area where industry can actually provide a bit of economic stimulus is really in the area of work and inactive wells and helping keep service companies, employed, taking those assets off the landscape. We're not going to see a lot of investment, obviously, in new drilling activity where prices are, but companies did have programs ready to go to shut in inactive wells, do the remediation and reclamation work, but they just don't have the cash on hand. And so we've seen some government announcements there that I'll get into in a little bit. And then the final area is around red tape reduction and the deferral of regulatory change. So with the feds, on the essential services side, things have gone quite well. On the liquidity side, they have announced a lot of general measures across the economy. We've seen increased credit facilities from both the Bank of Canada and EDC. There was an industry-specific package that was targeted at small and medium firms. There was a $100,000 barrel of oil equivalent a day production cap on that. There were a number of other conditions. We actually estimate that, that particular package will only benefit somewhere between 10 and 20 Canadian oil and gas companies. So pretty small package, although conversations continue with government on the potential for additional measures that would be broader within the oil and gas sector. And then we saw, announcement on $1.72 billion across the country for inactive and orphan wells. 1.2 of that was for Alberta. $1 billion for inactive well inventory, which I'll come to when I talk about the province. And there was a $200 million loan for the Orphan Well Association. But to be clear, that was a loan and it's fully repayable. And industry, of course, pays for the Orphan Well Association. So industry will be expected to repay that $200 million. The other part of the federal package was $750 million for methane reduction. That one, I think, took everybody by surprise. It wasn't really part of the conversations anybody was having with the federal government. And that also is a credit facility. And what the government is hearing from us and our members is that in these times, you're unlikely to see companies take advantage of a credit facility on an expense rather than, trying to keep production and staff on to do the core functions of the company. They're unlikely to take on additional credit for those means, but I think the federal government is taking another look at that program and how it may be designed. And then the other area with the federal government on the regulatory side, they have announced a deferral of their clean fuel standard development, which is positive in our view, and we had asked for. And then conversations are underway regarding recognizing Alberta's methane regulations as being equivalent to the federal target, which is something we've been working on for quite some time. When it comes to the province, we've seen significant significant engagement, positive engagement on all fronts, I would say, from the provincial government. On essential services, we've had really no issues there. On the liquidity and job preservation side, they've announced they're covering the AER fees over a 6-month period of time. There was that's a $100 million loan. It should be $200 million. No, sorry. The Alberta government did on their own loan $100 million to the Orphan Well Association. That's above and beyond the $200 million from the federal government. And they announced a program of $1 billion for inactive as a result of the federal money. On that front, they've announced 2 tranches of $100 million each at this point. We are concerned about the complexity and the potential for inefficiencies and how they are designing that. But they have said they're prepared to look at additional design features for subsequent tranches of money. They're looking to roll that $1 billion out over a 2-year period of time. Finally, they're upping their work on their red tape reduction program, and we've reprioritized our asks within that to focus on operational cost saving. Overall, we've seen very positive engagement. The other thing I'll highlight is Bill 12, which gave additional powers to the Orphan Well Association and to the AER when a company goes bankrupt. And so this provides a fix to a couple of significant gaps in the system that really, we had been highlighting for some time, but really came to light when Trident went under and left 4,000 wells behind. And so they didn't go through bankruptcy proceedings, they just walked away. And so the Orphan Well Association actually had to go to court to get a receiver appointed for that company so that, a sale of some of their assets could be facilitated and there could be an orderly transition of the other assets into the Orphan Well Association. Bill 12 largely fixes that. It allows the AER to appoint a receiver without having to go to court. And it allows the Orphan Well Association, under certain circumstances, to continue operating well sites so that it can facilitate a sale into the hands of another company. So that's the bulk of it. On the good news front, I will point out markets are responding to both price and our storage concerns. Obviously on the price side, it has a negative impact on the economy. On the storage side, it's helping us get through. Governments have also been responsive largely, although we have concerns in a couple areas. The other thing I'll point out is Canadian companies were already lean and nimble as a result of the last 5 years where we faced challenges as an industry. And so we haven't seen significant failures of companies to this point, although I'll emphasize to this point. And that's unlike the United States where, they haven't had to face the same discipline as an industry, and we have seen a couple of, fairly large bankruptcies very early on into the crisis as a result. The other thing I'll point out is that when I built this slide, all 4 of the major projects underway to help the industry for the long term were on track. 3 of them continue to be Keystone XL faced a court challenge in Montana, and they had a negative decision there. For a while, they were saying that they could work around that without too many delays. As of this morning, TransCanada was saying they expect that to set back Keystone XL for a 1-year period. But the other 3 projects with LNG Canada and Coastal GasLink, Trans Mountain Expansion and Bridge, they continue to be on track. And the actions the BC government has taken have specifically allowed those projects to proceed through the health crisis that we're facing. So, that bodes well for the long-term health of the industry. So I'll leave it there and happy to take any questions.
Great. Thanks very much, Mr. Montgomery. Council, any questions for Chris on his presentation or about the industry in general? Yeah, Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Thanks for that presentation, Chris. I guess my question is in regards to some concern that some friends in county and MD have had, that there's a potential that oil and gas companies won't be able to pay their property taxes in their jurisdictions with the current state of the economy and the price on oil. Have you had discussions about tax deferrals with your members in regards to this?
Yeah, so our members, we don't get too involved in, direct budget conversations with the counties and MDs. We just, as CAPP, that's not really our role. But our members are certainly speaking to them and in some cases asking for deferrals of payment. And in some cases, they've been responsive. I'm not sure specifically about GP County and MD of Greenview off the top of my head. But what we see is across the province, municipal taxes are a significant portion of companies' operating expenses, particularly on older assets, but it's a concern everywhere. So companies are looking at what they can do to cut back their op costs, but that municipal tax bill in a lot of cases hangs over their head quite a bit. So there are certainly those conversations. And yeah, certainly through conversations with individual municipalities and RMA as well, certainly recognize their concern about the ability of companies to pay, and in some cases companies aren't able to pay already.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Minhas?
Yes, Chris, you mentioned those 4 projects on schedule, those 3 like beside the Keystone. Are they on schedule, or did COVID-19 affected on them, or they still keep the construction work going on?
No, so construction work is still going. All of the major projects, again, with the exception of Keystone XL, have said publicly that they're on track at this point in time. There's been some concern as time goes on, I think it eases. If there were to be additional health measures, for example, that the provinces had to enact, that would be a concern. There's also been concern, particularly on the LNG side, about some of the cities in China that were impacted and the potential of disruptions on supply chains. But again, to this point, nothing that significantly impacted those projects, and they've all said publicly they continue to be on track.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Chris? Yeah, Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate your slide presentation, and I was wondering if it was possible if you could send that to council members. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I provided it to staff yesterday, so they should have it and be able to distribute it. If not, I'm happy to resend it.
Yeah, there's some information there that I wouldn't mind sharing with some people in the community that maybe you're not reaching out to. So, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Any other questions for our delegation? I don't see anybody putting their hands up. So, Chris, thanks very much for making yourself available today. Really appreciate CAPP's ongoing engagement. For council's information, Chris has also had 2 telephone conference calls with chief elected officials over the last couple of weeks. And so CAPP's engagement isn't just coming to council. They're doing their best to make sure that they're letting lots of people across the province know what's going on, and appreciate that Alberta is kind of made up of a whole bunch of different mini markets of oil and gas, and it's great to know the specifics for what's going on in our local region. Thanks very much, Chris.
Good. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, so our next delegation that we know wanted to attend was Renee Charbonneau. I see her name on the screen. So Renee, if you're there, if you'd just like to turn on your monitor and turn on your microphone, we'll welcome you to council and give you the floor to make your presentation.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here. I'm grateful for this opportunity today. Veterans Memorial Gardens and Interpretive Center is the main project that the Canadian Motorcycle Tourism Association is undertaking here in Grande Prairie. And we're humming along quite nicely. Bathrooms are being installed right now. Things are progressing the way they need to be. We'll have water and sewer connected in the next few weeks. Once that happens and our sidewalks go in, we have, I'd like to share my screen for a moment to show you something here. Can you see that okay?
We can.
Okay. So once our sidewalks are in, we will have 8 delineated micro gardens. And the outer walkway is all of our trees. Along the back line here, which would be the south side of the property or the back alley, We have approximately $4,000 worth of fruit trees going in September. And then I would like to find a way to get connected with other organizations. I've been connected to Jerry Napier from Gaps of the Peace to see if we can help somehow. I was a single mother for a lot of years. I know that food security is a big issue, and I know that the hillside community in a lot of ways would be considered a little bit of an inner city type of community. So to that end, with a lot of lower income families there, we thought it would be a great opportunity to really connect to the community, besides the fact that we're working with the Hillside Community Association, and find a way to tap into some of the different resources that the city may have to allow us to help the community with some vegetable gardens, where it could be, you know, a community-run organization. We're not sure, we've never done anything like this, but because nothing is going to be planted in those first 4 gardens this year, it gives us the opportunity to really connect with the community. So, you know, the other side of this is with our outdoor community kitchen being approved and working with AHF. Once all of this is in place with the app that we've created for Motorcycle Mondays, our facility she's contemplating allowing it for our facility to be able to still impact the 20 nonprofits that we worked with last year and help them to raise some money this year, because we'll be able to do some drive-by fundraisers. Last year we did barbecues by donation by going through the various motorcycle dealers. This year we'll be able to do it here. We have an app where people will be able to pre-order stuff. And again, it all comes back down to making sure that everything we do at this facility really fits into what the community itself needs. And what the community needs is basically a little bit of liveliness happening over there, and some things for kids to do and things for adults to do. So we're hoping that with everything, we've done a lot of grant writing again this year. If everything goes to plan and Mother Nature doesn't make it as challenging as she did last year, we should have our first 73 memorials are ready to go in the gardens. We have, we're ready to pour our concrete. So we're just kind of waiting for a few things to happen with Mother Nature and a few things with Aquaterra. And we should be in the position to be a really positive impact even before we're fully open.
Great. Thanks very much, Ms. Charbonneau. Any questions for the delegation? Ms. Charbonneau, one thing, so you mentioned that you had partnered with the neighborhood association or had worked with them in the past. I guess sounded like you're looking for some support for the gardens there, and I would note that at least one avenue for you to explore would be the neighborhood associations do have access to capital grants. If they chose this as a project that they wanted to submit an application for, that could be an area that you could look at. Other council members might have other ideas, but that might be at least one avenue that you could try off the top of my head.
We have already partnered with them and got a grant for some trees and to build the shed for the outdoor community kitchen. Through other grants, we are getting a barbecue. Secure Energy has donated a barbecue for us. We're looking at our outdoor refrigeration and an outdoor community sink that Wild Plumbing and Heating and MCO are going to be putting in for us. So that the whole idea of the facility is that if somebody wants to throw a neighborhood block party, they want to have a singing for seniors on Wednesday night, this will be the kind of facility that can accommodate those things. And if we have our own food handling permit, which is what we're looking at getting, then we'll be in a reasonable position to be that positive role in the community. My biggest hurdle is finding some support. I'm just not quite sure where to start with building an actual community vegetable garden. That's not my normal wheelhouse. I've got 2 gardening clubs willing to help with planting and weeding and teaching, all on a social distancing schedule. But I need some guidance because this is not my wheelhouse at all.
Okay, I see Councillor Friesen.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Charbonneau. Always good to see you. Have you talked with the community gardens that are being developed in Claremont at all?
No, didn't know about them.
Okay, I will send you some contact information afterwards. I have to remember exactly the name of it, and I'll get that information to you. And I do understand there may be one also in Heights that are building right now. So I do know the contact individuals for each. I'll make sure to get that to you for a bit of direction anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Friesen. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Thanks for coming in and presenting. Renee, I actually have 2 avenues potentially for you to look into. One of them is our community gardens policy and procedures under our edible landscaping guidelines. You can find it right on cityofgp.com. It explains sort of how to put together community gardens, to generate the support, and what the city is looking for in order to create a community gardens in your neighborhood. Working with a neighborhood association, with your veterans club, with your ANIVETs, should be relatively easy to get that type of support as well as insurance money. And I do believe the city of Grande Prairie has some kind of program where we can help get that insurance money to you. You just need to find the policy. The other thing that I would like to lead you towards is our phase 2 of our GP Grows campaign. We just started doing this. Phase 1 was a brilliant success, but it's free seeds and soil for your garden, and that we've been giving out. It's very easy to sign up and register for the program. I would encourage you to talk with the people in the Hillside Neighborhood Association as well. All you have to do is go to cityofgp.com/GP Grows and then sign up, follow the instructions and sign up on Perfect Mind. And aiming for 3rd or 4th week to give out seed potatoes and some soil, and I believe zucchini seeds as well. And that could get your garden started for no cost, especially if you can get members from the neighborhood to sign up and then come pick up their seeds. And we'd be more than happy to help you get started in that realm. So I encourage you to check out GP Grows. It's an amazing program. And also our community gardens policy. Those should be very helpful for you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I had read a little bit about the GP Grows, but I was uncertain if a garden of this magnitude would actually qualify.
Well, it's one set of seeds and buckets of soil per family, which is why I say talk to all your connections in the Hillside area. If 20 of you manage to get them, and then they can all put it together in one garden, that could be a great community project to undertake.
Thank you, because Heritage Farm is donating some tomato plants, and I have raspberry bushes being donated by someone else. And, you know, we're working at those little things. It's just, as I said, it's not my wheelhouse. And with me having to play contractor because my contractor is stuck in Hawaii and has not been able to come home because of COVID, yeah, I'm learning a whole new skill set that I never anticipated would be mine to learn, but, you know, here's me trying.
I saw Councillor Bressie also had his hand up. Councillor Bressie?
Yeah, thank you. I feel bad for you not having a contractor, but I sure don't feel bad for them being stuck in Hawaii. Another grant that I'd encourage you to take a look at, where I think you missed it for the 2020, but for next year, one that could be a source of major capital is Co-op Community Spaces. I know I was involved in another group that did some raising for them, and they told me they'd sure like to find a project in our region to support. They just can support the one that I was part of applying for, but it looks like you're aware of that one.
Yeah, I'm aware of that one. I was actually in the process of applying, had some computer challenges, redid the application, and was in the middle of uploading my documents when we timed out. So
Oh, shoot.
I missed it by about 40 seconds because I had only found out about it by a week before, and I was scrambling to get invoices and copies of paperwork that they would need, right? And the one piece of paperwork I needed didn't come in until very late, and you know, but I have applied for a number of others, a federal grant for the residential school program. With the support of the Grande Prairie Friendship Center, we're building a big display for that. I'm working with the Shevchenko Foundation for a Ukrainian soldiers display, and the Canadian World War I internment camps. We're actually building a set of education kits for that. And the beautiful thing about everything that we are doing is all of our micro gardens that are tied to the education kits are now being translated into 3 languages, Cree, French, and Ukrainian, because there are bilingual schools teaching in all of them. So we're working very hard to do that. We've got our documentaries are done, and we're working at getting the translations for the first 3 documentaries done in Cree. We've already got them being worked on in French, and then hopefully we'll be able to reprocess them with the closed captioning. So we've got a whole bunch of different phases of things that are taking place. And one of the things that my board has decided is that with the help of the 2 different Grande Prairie gardening clubs, we're going to be doing a lot of companion gardening, and the entire gardens will be fruit, vegetables, and flowers. And we'll be working through the entire thing that way.
Great, that's great. Well, thanks very much for coming, giving us the update. Hopefully some of the suggestions that council members were able to share with you about where to go for some input and some support on the garden will be useful to you. And it's always great to hear about the activities of the garden and the memorial. You're doing a great job, and we certainly appreciate the work you do in our community. Thanks, Renee.
Thank you very much, and thank you guys for everything you're attempting to do through all these challenging times. Have a good one. Thank you for hearing me. Bye.
Yeah. So I'll just check in with our Director of Corporate Services just to see if there was anybody, were there any members of the public that had attended at City Hall to present to Council?
No, we have an evening delegation, but none further here today.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much, Mr. Borg. So would remind anybody who might be watching this on tape or live as we go, even though Council has moved to virtual operations this way, we do still have opportunities for members of the community who wish to make presentations to Council, and so we're doing our best to remain as accessible as possible. And just would remind people that if you wish to get in touch with Council or make a presentation to the city, you have that opportunity by contacting our city administration, and they can help you make arrangements to do that. So we'll move on in our agenda. We have no items of unfinished business, and I think that brings us to 7.1, our CAO's report. So I'd love to City Manager Mr. Horacio Galante. Horacio.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I will provide an update about city operations the last couple of weeks and the look ahead in the next 15 days. So regarding COVID cases in the province, we had about 5,700 cases as of yesterday, with 97 new cases in the last day, and about 96 deaths. In Canada, the total number is about 57,000, with 3,567 deaths, and globally, more than 3.4 million cases with almost 250,000 deaths. Here in the province, the Calgary zone and the South zone are seeing still a significant increase in the daily new cases, and the curves are still showing a positive slope. They're still climbing in those 2 areas. Here in the North zone, the curve is pretty flat, which is a very good indication for our local reality here in the North zone. So very few cases in the area. Up to yesterday, there are 3 active cases in the area here. As you may be aware, the government of Alberta launched an app that is called Alberta Trace Together, or AB Trace Together, that is available for free. Any systems, any phones, any smartphone, you can download it for free. It's voluntary. It's a voluntary app that you can use. And this is a mobile contact tracing app that helps to let you know if you have been exposed to COVID-19 or if you have exposed others while protecting your privacy. So I did some testing on the app, very interesting. It works via Bluetooth, and the more people that are using the app, it's a way to trace potential contacts with infected people and measure your degree of exposure. In terms of reopening activities, a few days ago, the province has announced a gradual reopening plan and the next milestones to reopen additional activities on May 14th. In terms of spring flooding, that's another issue that we have on top of the COVID-19 situation. There are some mandatory and voluntary evacuations in a number of communities due to overland flooding from ice jams and the spring runoff. The regional municipality of Good Buffalo and Mackenzie County are the most affected areas. The local situation here in Grande Prairie region is being managed, balancing the Bear Creek Reservoir to an optimum point. Monitoring on a daily basis the inflows coming from Bear Lake versus the outflows being discharged in a controlled fashion through the spillway. I'm happy to report there is no damage downstream on the Bear Creek corridor because of the spring flood. In terms of the different departments and the service areas for the city, I will start with infrastructure and economic development activities. So for the past couple of weeks, transportation formed 2 additional pothole crews to catch up after a busier than normal spring because of drainage issues, as well the deployment of crews to Sexsmith to assist the community in mitigating some flooding incidents in Sexsmith. Engineering mitigated rising water levels at the reservoir, as I mentioned, while managing downstream flows. And we had very active coordination with Aquaterra and APCO to ensure that critical infrastructure and low-lying areas were protected throughout the corridor. Engineering awarded the tender for 100th Avenue Road rehabilitation between 108th Street and 124th Street near the airport. The Transportation Department has completed the Priority 1 road sweeping. Environmental and Energy Department launched a modified city scrub last week and will be mailing bag tags to those who require them through the Perfect Minds system. For the next couple of weeks, some activities on the infrastructure and economic development area. We will continue monitoring the reservoir levels. It's being leveled off right now and being monitored on 24/7 basis. We have sensors upstream on the upper area of the watershed. Very interesting, the Township Road 772 sensor has been essentially leveled for the last week, and the Bear Lake sensor is showing stable water levels right now, but have been peaking over the last 2 weeks. Economic development is coordinating the Business Ambassador program through GPREP, and will be actively working with business communities leading up to the May 14th reopening. Environment has developed the phase 2 of GP Growth, which we will launch on May 6th in a couple of days. I will provide a little bit more details about this program. It has been a recent conversation with Ms. Charbonneau and Councillor Thiessen mentioned this as well. So the kits will consist on seed potatoes that will be able to produce up to 20 pounds of potatoes, and zucchini seeds, and a 5-gallon pail of garden soil. the registration will begin on Wednesday, May 6th, in a couple of days, through the online registration system, Perfect Mind. Residents will need to create an account if they haven't registered before. The kits will be available through a no-contact curbside pickup on Tuesday, May 12th, from 3 to 6:30 p.m., Wednesday, May 13th, 9 to noon and 1 to 5, and Thursday, May 14th, 9 to noon and 1 to 5. No contact pickup means that the kit will be placed on the rear of your vehicle, so it could be the trunk or the rear hatch or box for a pickup. And the participants will receive no contact instructions before they selected the pickup day. Curbside delivery will be available for those residents with some accessibility needs. And registration for curbside delivery can be arranged through our Citizen Contact Center at 780-538-0300. There are approximately 3,000 kits available to residents of the city of Grande Prairie for GP Growth Phase 2. A media release with this information is also being distributed today, I believe. The Parks Department is actively involved in Phase 3 of this program and will be planting a wide range of root vegetables within the orchards and raised beds at the Coca-Cola Center. So you will see the parks folks doing community gardening there. I need to highlight this is really a team effort, and this program required support from across the organization. 11 different departments have been working to support this project. So it's a real team effort. Engineering continues to issue tenders and RFP as planned for the capital program for the construction season. Transportation will begin with the priority 2 road sweeping and boulevard cleaning this week. And the Parks Department started with mosquito control and continuing with litter pickup. Regarding the protective and social services area, the director's office is refining community safety initiatives at the committee request as per last week discussion, and will be presented at the next Protective Services Committee. The Community Social Department, their work is back underway to bring forward to Council the updated affordable housing strategy, and the target is end of May. Enforcement has been developing, updating policies, procedures, and training documents during the COVID downtime. The Fire Department, the scope of work for the Fire Master Plan is completed and is now at the procurement. And GPREP, the team continued to operate the Emergency Coordination Center, and now the focus is on reopening strategies. For community services, facilities management, they're preparing for staff to return to some facilities, service centers, City Hall, City 99, etc., in preparation for the eventual resumption of normal operations with the installation of appropriate protective barriers. Next week, the Eastlink chlorination design project will go to tender as an alternative to a mandatory site meeting. Some video footage of the facility and systems will be used. Eastlink Center Fieldhouse curtain project has been completed and continuing with multiple aquatic shutdown projects. This week, the startup meeting for the Parks Garage, and next week is a startup meeting for the Museum Storage Project. In terms of the CKC campus, due to ongoing restrictions put in place by Alberta Health Services, the decision has been made to cancel the 2020 EastLink Triathlon. We will use this time to plan to come back stronger next year for the 5th annual event. The procurement department has started selling on Gov deals again, so we're ready to list our older fitness area equipment. We're working on an RFQ for audio and video portion of the cycle room to proceed with the purchase of a projector and a screen. This will be for this will be used for a virtual cycle classes using ICG Connect technology. This is a technology that will allow users to compete against each other, and it's being used in different systems around the world. So it's more motivational and engaging. This will give us the ability to function with or without an instructor, and we can operate in multiple hours of the day. Some CKC staff will be meeting on May 8th in order to learn how to use our city robotic lawnmower around the campus. So we're going to test that technology on the CKC campus as well, in addition to Musco City Park. The shutdown at Coca-Cola Center is going well, and staff are now working on stripping and sealing the floors in preparation for a reopening. In terms of events and entertainment, we continue running the 2 p.m. tunes, again, through Revolution Play's social media platforms from Monday, May 4th to Friday, May 8th. And the second run is open with a message to Grande Prairie by Jan Arden. So you can share this through your social media channels. For sports development, culture, and wellness, staff are working to have all the proper processes and staff resources in preparation for a reopening of the facilities for May 14th, as I mentioned before. So we're planning for now reopening the museum, the art gallery, and the Ernie Radborn Pavilion. Staff are working with Nighthawk as well to facilitate the reopening of the Verpo Golf Course and campground with proper spacing in place and other applicable protocols mandated by the province. Regarding transit, we did some service adjustments implemented on April 13th. The frequency is reduced to 60 minutes all day, and the service ends 1 hour earlier on weekends and on weekdays, and 2 hours earlier on Saturdays. The on-demand hybrid pilot project has been implemented. It provides stop-to-stop transit services for those individuals who require it for essential travel, for example, for employment during the evening times, and we have reduced regular when we have reduced regular transit service. So the number of trips is increasing, and on the second week we had seven trips scheduled on demand. Bylaw has increased their presence at the downtown terminal and on the buses to assist with some unruly passengers. As remember, the transit is free right now. We're working with procurement to establish an on-demand pilot project RFP, just to continue with this on more regular basis, hopefully in the future. And the accessible demand for trips is down 90%, okay, on the accessible transit. Finally, the corporate service area. This service area continues to support GPREP operations with dedicated resources from communications, the director's office, IT, and finance, and they're all fully integrated into ECC operations. And also we're having support from procurement and health and safety as needed. Specifically in the past week, our request for further GPREP communications coverage was accommodated with resources from our marketing team. With the province announcement for a phased approach to reopening, health and safety and procurement are working to ensure the required personal protective equipment is in place for a limited reopening of city customer service operations at the appropriate time. Taxation and assessment is on track for presenting the required 2020 mill rate bylaw, which includes the August 31st tax deferral deadline and the waiver of penalties, and that is at the May 12th Corporate Services Committee. Finance will also present an update for our Q1 financial position, as well as how we can achieve the 0% property tax increase at the same meeting. And finally, looking ahead to how the city can support our local economic recovery, Finance have moved up a mid-year capital discussion that pre-COVID-19 was scheduled for the end of June to the new date on May 26th, and that day is the Corporate Services Committee. Procurement will also present our plan for a fast-track procurement process at this meeting that will ensure that we take advantage of any available shovel-ready stimulus funding from other levels of government, could be provincial or federal. Thank you, and that is my update.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Galante. Any questions for us? I appreciate that was an extensive report that covered a lot of ground, but if there were any high-level questions that we wanted to ask at this stage? Councillor Bressie?
Great. Thank you for the update. I appreciate it. I especially get really excited to hear about looking at on-demand transit and the idea of this COVID-19, looking at some opportunities to explore some new models that could be good for us permanently. So excited to hear that. My apologies. I had to tell my kids to stop streaming because I froze up for a minute. So my apologies if I missed this, but I know I've had a lot of conversations with the community about dog parks and playgrounds, and just wondering if there's a timeline we're looking at for that, or if there's a specific phase of the provincial reopening that we're thinking we might tie that to, or just where's that conversation at?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we are considering that as a May 14th potential activity to reopen gradually. We will need to, we're conscious of probably people, because of the amount of time that the restrictions have been in place, probably people will go more massively to dog parks. So we'll need to dedicate some resources from enforcement to monitor the number of people. For now, the limit is 15 people. So we will consider reopening some dog parks depending the new phase after May 14th.
Thank you. And sorry, is that the same kind of thinking for playgrounds?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Galante? I don't see any. Then could I have a motion to receive his report for information? Sure. Councillor Blackburn.
So moved.
Thanks, Councillor Blackburn. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Galante. We'll move on to our committee business, starting with item 8.1. I think Councillor Platt, that's you with the Protective and Social Services Committee.
Thanks, Mayor Gibbon. Yes, I'd ask the Council adopt the minutes of the Protective and Social Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, April 28th, 2020, as presented.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Platt. Any errors or omissions, anything that we need to correct before we adopt that set of minutes? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous. Councillor Platt.
We had one business arising coming out of there, so I'd like to make another motion that Council adopt the presented terms of reference in support of the Policing Advisory Committee.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Platt. Any discussion or debate on this point? I just observed that there were a number of amendments that were offered at the committee, and I think they've all been incorporated. Thanks very much to the City Clerk's Department for incorporating those and capturing them. Any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And Councillor Plott, anything else? Sorry, Councillor O'Toole, did you have something arising from that? No? Okay. Councillor Plott, then we'll go to you if you want to highlight anything from that set of minutes.
You bet. Great. I appreciate it, Mayor Gibbon. Yeah, you had mentioned there was quite a bit of conversation about the Policing Advisory Committee, which was great to hear. I know this is something that's very passionate to Mayor Gibbon and Councillor Bressie as well, and other members. But those two seem to be leading the charge. I'm grateful that you guys are, and that we're all learning as we go. Director Manuel also gave us an update on the community needs with the pandemic that's happening. They have started a Thursday Zoom group with a lot of agencies that are involved. I know there was half of council was involved here last Thursday. Lots of conversation. We had a great update from the RCMP on our Q1 results. Some good numbers that come up, that we had a 17% decrease in break and entry and a 24% decrease in theft in motor vehicles. So those were good, nice numbers. We also had an update from the fire department, but I believe that Mr. Galante already referenced that, so I'll leave it at that for now for that committee. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Plott. I think that takes us next to infrastructure and economic development, and Councillor Clayton. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bressie, excuse me.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I would move that Council accept the minutes of the April 28th Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee meeting as presented.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressie. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Again, seeing nobody waving to the screen, then I'll call for the vote to adopt them. Please vote. All in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous. Councillor Bressie.
Great. And then also just a motion coming out of that is I would move that Council direct the Mayor to write a letter to Premier Kenney highlighting two items. One, identify the City of Grande Prairie support in a region-by-region approach regarding a reopening and recovery plan. And two, highlighting the City of Grande Prairie as being in the best position to safely implement the provincial reopening and response plan. Just to speak to this, I'd encourage Council to support this. Something I want to be really clear about this motion, though, is this motion is agnostic on the speed of opening and on the time that reopening should happen. It's just suggesting a process that should be looked at as reopening happens. So it's not saying, hey, get us open right away as fast as possible. My personal view is that the speed of reopening should be led by the medical experts. However, I think that there's some political and economic considerations of why the government wouldn't want a localized approach. For example, I've heard some people say it's not fair to let some regions open before other regions because that would disadvantage them. And there might be some political calculations involved in if we let this region reopen and this one doesn't, then there might be some political follow-up to that. And for me, the intent of this motion isn't to say, hey, we know better than the medical experts on medical issues, but it's as politicians saying to other politicians, as you're considering the non-medical aspects of reopening, please consider a region-by-region approach. I'd also point out that this is actually contemplated in the provincial reopening plan, which came out after this was discussed in committee. The language they use is a localized approach, which is slightly different language than us. I don't know if that matters and if anybody's interested in potentially amending this, but still that is contemplated in the plan. And I think it's good for us to be saying, hey, we're glad you guys are looking at that. Please keep on going down that line. Our region really is different than what's happening in the southeast of the province, and it should be considered differently. So I hope Council will support this.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Bressie. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Clayton. You'll have to get your microphone, Councillor Clayton.
Sorry about that. I would like to amend the motion to read up until the end of point 1. So removing point 2, to Councillor Bressie's comments, the region-by-region approach is the most important thing to me at this point. I think there are going to be opportunities, and as the Premier and the government has stated, phase 1 is set for May 14th based on us achieving certain numbers and continuing to flatten the curve and continuing to go through the medical recommendations and practices in day-to-day life that has been set forward. If we continue to act that way, we will get to phase 1. And if we don't, we may not get there May 14th. I do think that a region by region approach, though, is important in regards to how that looks. I would hate for certain parts of the province that are going through more negative impacts from COVID-19 than our region is, to hold back our region from what is possible. If, for example, another region has another large outbreak and our region is continuing to abide by the medical expectations that are laid forward, then we, in my opinion, should be able to get to phase 1 without being held back from other regions. If the entire province is in phase 1, and it appears that through the sort of criteria of phase 1, it looks like certain parts of the province aren't able to get to phase 2, then our region shouldn't be held back by other parts of the province because they weren't able to get to the standards that were set out from AHS in regards to what is safe to get to the next phase. So by keeping the phase by phase approach and it being region by region, I think that our region will continue to do the great work that we're doing. Our residents in our region and our workplace in our region are abiding by the standards set out by AHS, and I think that if we have the mayor write a letter to lobby the province to heavily put impact on this region by region approach, that our region could be, an example of continuing to follow the guidelines as they were meant to be. So I strongly encourage council to support the amendment, so the motion being amended to only include point 1. Thanks.
Sure. So another way we could do this, rather than amendment, is we could vote on the motions independently. We could just split the motion. It's 2 parts, and so it is the council direct the mayor write a letter to Premier Kenney highlighting 2 items, and then we'll vote on item number 1, yes or no, and then we can vote on item number 2, yes or no. Maybe that's is that okay? Is that a little bit easier? Just in case we had any other wordsmithing and okay. So let's just split the motion.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's split the motion and we'll deal with council direct the mayor write a letter to Premier Kenney highlighting 1, identify the city's support for a region by region approach to reopening and recovery. Okay. So discussion and debate on that point, on point number 1. Councillor Thiessen, I think I saw you, and then Councillor Blackburn. No, Councillor Blackburn.
Thanks, Bill. No, I'll speak to point 2. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I recognize that from an economic and a financial point of view, we want to get as much advantage as we can in order to be able to get back to normal. And I hope that there will be some ways that can happen. I'm a little concerned, though, about having an approach that looks at this as a region by region change in the way that things happen. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, yes, we in Grande Prairie have done very well, but not every community in our region is doing as well as we are. And I really do fear that as soon as we start to let up, we'll see greater travel between communities and so on. And I think we'll see a greater risk of having the numbers of cases go up again. I would really rather leave this in the hands of the province. I don't think it's going to go well either way, and I'd rather not be part of the decision that allowed it to go badly. So I'm going to oppose the motion.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Blackburn. I see Councillor Thiessen and Councillor Palat.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. At committee, I spoke in favor of the region by region approach, and I think I'm still going to vote in favor of the region by region approach. Just to respond to Councillor Blackburn, I think it's abundantly clear, at least to me, that the province is going to make these decisions based off of the best health advice that they receive. We're politicians, and that's fine that we can engage in a political discussion that's largely opinion, and the province can take into account our letter or dismiss it altogether. So I don't feel like we're going to shift them as far as their decision-making process is concerned. but I do think as we start to get closer to this reopening, I think we need to present ideas to the province, and I'm sure they've already looked into a potential region by region approach. But at least in the context of our region has done very, very well. I know the outlying areas have not. If we're talking about McLennan and Falher and High Prairie and Peace River, and they are fairly close to us, but I'm sure that the province, when they come back with a bit more descriptive measures, that any area that is justly affected by COVID would be properly taken care of by the health authorities as far as ensuring that the spread doesn't go further than where it is, and they'll work to contain that. So I don't mind presenting an idea forward to the province, and ultimately I'll just state that they're going to make the decision anyway. So yeah, it's an opinion. I don't mind sending my opinion forward in this regard.
Thanks. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I also will be supporting this. I think it's important to us to look at a region by region places, especially what's going to happen potentially in Alberta. You know, I'd hate to see us kick the province all open when you have areas that might not be ready, like some areas might not be. I think it would be better to go region by region for the entire province. I can understand Councillor Blackburn's concerns, and I think there'll be fears when we first open the doors, no matter what it is the province allows us and decides. But they are putting in rules and social distancing measures and all the things that businesses will be able to reopen to and what will be their new normal. So it's kind of got out of our hands, and that's really up to HS, I think, to decide how businesses will reopen. But I do think that the people around here, we were one of the first communities to react. I feel very proud of the community that we live in, that the people have taken the precautions and done the homework and done the things they need to do to let our region be in a spot to be able to be open. And I think we need to reward our community for that. I hear a lot of people very concerned about us not opening. I do hear concerns about opening, but I think AHS will figure it out with rules. So I'm in full support of us putting something to the province on a region by region support.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Plott. Any other discussion? I see Councillor O'Toole. Maybe I'll just jump in to say that at committee I wouldn't have been able to support the motion first for two reasons. The second part was more problematic for me, and so certainly in this discussion debate on the first part, I can support that because I think we heard Premier Kenney say that they would use a localized approach, and so I think that this fits with that provincial direction. One thing that I think it's important for us to make the observation at an early stage so that we're all clear and so that our community is clear is the indications from the province were that this wasn't a one-way street. That the localized approach, as I interpreted Premier Kenney's words, meant that if there was a requirement to bring back restrictions in a localized area, the province would be willing to do so. So when we're talking about a region by region basis, I think we need to be upfront and clear with our community and our businesses that while we're there now and we support that approach, it comes with the downside of if we don't do a good job, we may be a region that gets shut down when others are allowed to move forward. Recognizing that the province is already heading this direction, and that the province is clear that this is absolutely a two-way street where restrictions could be loosened, and they were specific that they could be tightened if required in a localized area. On that basis, I can certainly support this first part of the motion. Councillor O'Toole, you were next up.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Given. And I was about to say pretty much what you were going to say. I think it was loud and clear last week when Premier Kenney got up and discussed the opening. But then again, he could reverse that and tighten things up even tighter. So with that, I am very supportive of this first motion. And I think that we're good to go. I can see there's some downsides as well. But then I can see the opportunity to see a community such as ours with very little cases and see where it can go. And we need to present some selling features of, maybe I know of a business right now that's probably going to open up here right away. But there's a lot of cost in doing that. They have to revamp their way of doing business in order to open up. And that's just for safety of spreading the disease. So, yes, they can open, but there's still going to be another cost of getting their building accesses and staff. trained to follow the procedure set out by Alberta Health Services. So once again, just very supportive. Thank you.
I think I saw Councillor Clayton there.
Thanks, Mayor Given. Yeah, so I just sort of to briefly close, I encourage Council to support this first part of the motion. You know, as was earlier discussed at committee level, we've always identified ourselves as entrepreneurs and out-of-the-box thinkers. We've been willing to support the province whenever called upon. In this instance, there are obviously some concerns, and AHS has been very clear in setting the guidelines, and the province has been very clear that they are willing to look at a localized approach. We are geographically isolated, and we still continue to be Alberta's mid-sized city with the fewest cases of COVID. As we all know, we have a well-representation for many sectors in business, and for us to have an opportunity to be to receive a localized approach in the region by region sort of scenario, I think will go to show that it's not a blanket approach. Although it's a global pandemic, there are opportunities in certain regions where people can get back to work and people can open their doors. And I think that we have been served with that opportunity. So I look forward to the mayor writing this letter, and I encourage council to support the motion. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Councillor Bressie, I see your hand. And I will recognize you because I didn't acknowledge Councillor Clayton to close without giving everybody else a chance if there's another comment on that.
Well, and I think it's my motion, so I'm happy to get. Well, I'll stop at it. And it's just something that, in hopes of getting more, maybe even unanimous support from council. One thing I want to highlight is that this motion, and my expectation would be the letter wouldn't be specific about how big a region is, where we're not asking for a municipality by municipality approach. I think it would make absolutely zero sense to treat the city different than the county of Grande Prairie, for example, and even a larger area. I think it does make sense to some of the feeder communities we have around us that many people from them are driving into Grande Prairie on a weekly or a multi-weekly basis, even though sometimes they're an hour or more away from us, and the communities that feed into our hospital. I think it's very reasonable to look at us as a unit with them. I just think doesn't make sense to look at us as a unit with Edmonton or even further in the far southeast of the province. So I'd encourage council support. Let's just point out that region by region approach isn't the same as saying a municipality, or a region can be large. And so I'd encourage council to support this.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bressie. So we'll call for the vote on the first part of the motion. All in favor? Okay, thank you. And opposed? Okay, one opposed, thank you. And then we have the second portion, which was highlighting the City of Grande Prairie as being in the best position to implement the provincial reopening and response plan. So we'll have the vote, discussion, debate on this second part. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. This was a part of committee that I kind of raised an eyebrow to. I would encourage council to not pass this part of the motion. To me, it just seems like it's full of hubris. To quote John Lennon, instant karma is going to get you. I don't want to make any assumptions as a politician, and I hope our medical professionals aren't making any assumptions that Grande Prairie is best situated. And I don't even understand what that means in the context. I know Councillor Bressie moved the motion tonight, but I was very buoyed by the fact that the mover of the motion at committee wanted to remove that part too, which if we were using it as a whole part, I probably would have voted in opposition to this motion. So thank you to Councillor Clayton for making the motion to remove this, and now we get the chance to vote on the split, but I would encourage council to defeat this part of the motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Any other discussion or debate on this second portion? I don't see anybody raising their hands. So I will call for the vote on the second portion. All in favor, that second point? Okay, and all opposed? Any opposed? Thank you. That looks unanimous in opposition. Councillor Bressie, did you have something further?
Yeah, I'm gonna, if the chair will permit me, I'd like to try another motion to kind of replace that one that got defeated that I think might be more appetizing to myself as well as committee. So let me try it, and if it's out of order, let me know. But what I'd like to move is we include in the letter highlighting the community of Grande Prairie as an area willing to work with the province to figure out what safe reopening looks like. And I think what I mean by that is I know there's a lot of areas of the province that are lobbying the Premier and putting pressure on just to go back to business as usual, as fast as usual. And I don't think that's the intention of this council. I don't think that's what I hear from our city administration, saying we want to get back to as normal as safely possible. And we're willing to adapt to do that. That's also something I'm hearing very clearly from our business community and our nonprofits. They're not saying, hey, let us do exactly what we were doing 3 months ago. They're saying we want to continue to serve our customers and we want to continue to serve our clients. And we're quite happy to make adaptations to do that. I'll also point out the work of the city we're doing. I think that we are leading the way as I talk to colleagues across the province in terms of our task force we've got with the chamber and the county, and working with essential businesses that are open to take best learnings from them and help the second wave of businesses learn how to open safely. So I think we are being entrepreneurial. I think we are willing to figure out what does the new normal for the next year or two look like. And I think it's worth us highlighting that to the province. Make it clear, don't just open us up. We're willing to work with you to figure out what that looks like in a safe fashion.
Sure. So, Councillor Bressie, can you restate your motion, just the motion?
Yeah.
And end at that to make sure that it gets recorded so that council members can follow it?
So, highlighting the community of Grande Prairie as an area willing to work with the province to determine what safe reopening looks like.
Okay. Open for discussion debate. I see a few hands, Councillor Clayton and then Councillor Plott.
Yeah, I think I'm maybe missing something on it. In my opinion, that is part of the first motion, that, the willingness to look at a localized region by region approach, the province already indicating it's localized, and us supporting the prior motion being a region by region approach. I assume that indicates you're willing to work with the province. So I don't know if there's something else to the motion that you're hoping to achieve, or if I'm missing something.
Councillor Bressie?
Yeah, and basically what I'm hoping for is I don't want that first, if we write a letter saying, hey, we want a region by region approach, I don't want that to be misconstrued as open some regions faster than others and just get us open as fast as possible. Because I know that that's the advocacy some are getting. I want to make it very clear that, hey, we're not just somebody asking the province for something. We're also offering to work with the province to not just say, hey, do this by giving us permission to reopen, but hey, we want to work with you guys to figure out how to reopen safely, and we're willing to be a little bit different in our different region to do that. So I think it's just maybe the attention that we say isn't needed in this, but I think how they read it, it might be important to highlight this.
Sure. And so I have Councillor Plott, Councillor Thiessen, and Councillor Bressie, it may just be in wording. I was thinking something similar, and I was thinking along the lines of and request the province's advice on how to best prepare our region to meet the conditions required for relaunch. The province has set out in the relaunch plan some high-level conditions that are required for relaunch. So even this date of May 14th is subject to meeting those conditions. But the plan doesn't provide any advice for municipalities, businesses, regions on how to meet those conditions. The things that we're in control of. So maybe that's what it is making that offer, saying, hey, we would like your advice on what we can do as a municipality, as a region, at the business level, to help the province meet those conditions required for relaunch. So we're actually looking for additional guidance beyond what's in the provincial relaunch strategy, because it is high order. It is not specific. It doesn't tell a clothing retailer what they need to do, and provides us less. If we may benefit if the province gave more guidance on the steps that we should actively be taking now. So that's that point about provincial advice that I was kind of thinking about. You may want to think about wording or see if there's a way to sort of do that. We'll see what the conversation brings up. Councillor Plott?
I'm kind of curious on the rewarding, but either way, I do think, with our entrepreneurial spirit up here, and just even talking a lot of business, I do think they want to hear what the guidelines are in our city to be proactive and how we're going to launch those. And I think there's a lot of fear within the business community of what that looks like. And so when you read through the guidelines, like Mayor Gibbons said, they're there, but they're a little vague. So I wish we had a little more oversight and a little bit more work with the province on that. I also think the city's been able to work very collaboratively with the province on other little initiatives. So I think this is a good fit for them to look at a region like ours and a municipal like ours to talk about that. So I would support the wording. I'd like to know what exactly it's going to be before I vote on it, but I'm in support.
Councillor Thiessen and Councillor Friesen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Actually, yeah, I'm in support of this motion and also curious to see how the wording ends up because that'll go a long way in my support. But I'm leaning towards yes. I think this actually meets the intent of what Councillor Clayton's motion, the second part of her motion, was made at committee. But it actually the words actually mean a lot as far as receiving the advice and working with the province to safely implement a relaunch. Those are all good things. So I appreciate Councillor Bressie bringing this back because I believe this is the intent of which Councillor Clayton wanted her original motion to read. I could be wrong in that assumption, but that's kind of what I'm feeling right now, and I like the intent going forward to bring us advice and to have us work with the province because essentially that's our role in trying to make it work for our community. So I can support this motion and also curious to see how it wordsmiths itself out.
Councillor Friesen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I am in support of this motion, and what I heard and what I hope the province would hear, what I heard as Councillor Bressie was making the motion, was that Grande Prairie, we've proven ourselves to be a region that, and a city for sure, that really seeks to innovate and reimagine, and we're willing to do that here as well. We've already experienced a great deal of that in how we've had to shut different things down and respond to this crisis. And I'd like to remind the province that we're willing to do that as well as we move into what that new normal eventually looks like. So if that takes piloting some different approaches or trying a few different things to Grande Prairie, I think will uniquely have the support of businesses and of our enforcement services and council to do those things. And that's what I heard, and I hope that that's what the province would hear, and I do not think it hurts to remind them of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Toole.
I'm in support, but I've got a couple concerns. I think we need to talk to our regional partners in the area that we're going to go and speak on behalf of them. We should get their consent to put that in the letter. We should also talk to, and I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is going to be, but we should let the Chamber of Commerce know that this letter is going to go towards the Premier. So as long as that's looked after, I think, and we got everybody on board locally, then I think we should continue. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Any other discussion? Councillor Clayton.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I think that, right now we've defeated the second part of the motion and the current motion. Although the wording isn't ideal, I think that the mayor who's writing the letter understands from the conversation the intent of it, and therefore I would support the motion. Thanks.
Yeah. So, Councillor Bressie.
Yeah, maybe if council would allow me, maybe could we do a friendly amendment just to on the floor? I didn't come in prepared to make a motion on this because I was expecting us to change course for the second one, even though I supported that. So, what if the motion was, and the motion was in the letter directing the mayor to highlight our community as willing to adapt and request the province's advice on how to best prepare our region to meet the conditions required for relaunch.
Okay, appreciate that, Councillor Bressie. This is, council acting a bit more as committee where we're a bit more flexible, but, unusual times. And I think our intent here is to highlight the willingness of the entrepreneurial spirit and the willingness of our community to adapt and to seek the province's advice on how we can best meet the conditions that they've laid out in their reopening plan. I don't think that changes the intent of the motion, but we're a little bit clearer on exactly what the wording would be. Arlene, I just want to check to see that that you got that, and if maybe Councillor Bressy, would you like Councillor Bressy to restate it again, just so that you've got it exactly? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Bressy.
Sure. So just in the original motion, also, so point 2 in that letter we're going to write is highlighting our community as willing to adapt and request the province's advice on how best to prepare our region to meet the conditions required for relaunch.
Okay, any, and I'll just see, Arlene, with the head nod, you're okay, you're able to get that? Okay, thank you. Councillor Thiessen?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Yeah, no, I'm okay with that. I think I'm still in favor. The only thing I might push back on one of the comments that was made in this roundtable discussion is I don't want to make sending a letter forward contingent upon our regional partners. I think it would be fair to let them know that this is what we did, but I wouldn't hesitate in sending that letter out before they do. Again, as stated, the province is going to take the approach that they feel is best, and I feel like if they are going to open on a regional basis, like County of Grande Prairie and City of Grande Prairie, for instance, I think they would have a level of consultation first before they do that. So I think it's fine for us to send the letter ahead. This is the City of Grande Prairie's position, and we can tell our partners in the region later, but I wouldn't make it contingent on that. So.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Minhas?
Yes, I agree with the Chris, but I still like to involve the chamber because chamber is the mostly business around, somehow either inform them or take your advice before we write it. Or I like the motion the way it is right now, but I really like to have a chamber get involved. I don't worry about the county, but chamber it should be.
So I'll just for council members, first off, this is a public discussion, so they might even be watching right now. So it shouldn't be a surprise to them, and certainly this will be covered by the media as we come out of this. Additionally, as everybody knows, through GPREP, we are working hand in hand with all the other municipalities in the region, and that includes on the business recovery basis, where the city, the chamber, and the county in particular are working with the Business Resiliency Task Force. So, I think that close operating relationship is already there. I don't think it's a problem for us to speak on behalf of our citizens and our businesses. And I would be really surprised if, we're not asking the province, we're asking the province to give us advice. And when we get that advice, we would naturally share that through both of those networks. So I don't see us acting independently on this at all. Councillor O'Toole?
Yeah, I maybe said it wrong, but my intention was to let them know what we were going to go ahead and write the letter to our partners. So with that, I hope that clarifies it. It may have come out wrong, but I just wanted to let, I think it's just a good neighbor policy to let people know what we're doing and what we're up to. And they may also add to a letter as well. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Do I see anybody else in the queue to speak to this motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. And I think that was everything from that committee agenda. Councillor Bressy, is there anything else that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, thank you. That's all the business arising from that, but a few things that I will highlight is we had a really great update from our economic development team, which is actually where this conversation came out of, and just and highlighting the work that we're doing along with the county and the Chamber of Commerce to make sure that our business, which the Chamber doesn't just have for-profit businesses, also got nonprofits as part of it, but make sure that our community that operates organizations here is ready to open, and that doesn't just mean ready to open to get the economy going. That means ready to open in a way that's safe for the community as they go about their operations. So it's great to hear that we're working proactively to be ready for relaunch in a safe fashion. And the last thing I'll highlight is we got correspondent. Well, we had a delegation from Spirit Leaf, which is a cannabis retailer in town, asking council to change some of its requirements around the reporting we require from cannabis retailers. And we also received correspondence from Build Grande Prairie requesting the council to take a look at our policies around secondary suites. And those are both conversations that committee recognized. There's reports coming to it in the next little while that will touch on both those topics anyways. So we didn't take specific action to either one of those requests, but that's because those are conversations that are coming up in the hopper. And it's worth council being aware that that's going on at the committee level. Those are some pretty important conversations that'll be coming our way in a little while potentially.
Great, thanks, Councillor Bressie. I think that takes us to the Corporate Services Committee and Councillor Minhas. Oh, sorry, I've skipped over. Sorry, I was just down too far. Sorry, Councillor Friesen, I was one ahead. Community Services.
Thank you, Mayor Given. So let me find it where I've opened it on my tabs here. So I would like to move that council receive the minutes of the, or approve the minutes of the Community Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, April 28th, 2020.
Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing none, then I will call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Clayton. And that was none opposed. Okay. Councillor Friesen, anything you wanted to highlight in that set of minutes?
Thank you. There was no business arising, but I will touch on a couple of things. CAO Galante mentioned a number of them, but I just want to shout out to the Community Knowledge Campus food vendors and the Ringside Cafe. With the closure of our facilities, those two vendors actually donated all of their perishable food items to provide bagged lunches to shelters throughout the city. I thought that was a really amazing way for businesses within our facilities to respond to what we've all had to face here. And there have been new dates set for Rodney Carrington, which is a sold-out show in the Bose Event Center. As well, Gord Bamford has been moved. So one of the Rodney Carrington will be October 12th and Gord Bamford November 6th. Also, the Storm Hockey Club is planning to start their spring training camp August 21st weekend, such that their season would begin on September 18th. So we're all really rooting for the Storm that we can get things back to normal enough that they can begin their season in a strong way. And administration at the at all of our venues are working really hard right now to explore ways of managing physical distancing and lineups and things like that to navigate the facilities as we all are able to return to those. Also, I'm sure parents will be really excited to know that Sports Development, Wellness and Culture are developing education programs that can be delivered online during the summer and exploring also some summer camp activity kits as an alternative to in-person programming. So just depending on what's happening there, we should have a few things available to keep the kids busy this summer. And CAO Galante talked about the transit development. So I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Friesen. So I think that takes us next, finally, to Councillor Minhas for Corporate Services.
Thank you, Mayor Belgivan. I'll move that council adopt the minute of Cooperative Services Committee meeting held on Tuesday, April 28, 2020, as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Minhas. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Anything that we need to correct before we adopt them? Seeing nothing, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Councillor Minhas.
Yep, 8.4.1, unaudited financial statement for December 19. I move the council approved the transfer of 2019's operating surplus of $385,000 to the financial sterilization reserve as a part policy 346.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Minhas. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, then I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That looks like unanimous. All in favor? Councilor Minhas, I think you have some additional motions.
Yeah. I move audit consolidated finance statement for 2019. Council approve the unaudited consolidated finance statement of City of Grande Prairie for the year of ending December 31st, 2019.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Minhas. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. Looks like that motion carries unanimously. If we can, Councillor Minhas, anything else that you wanted to highlight from that set of minutes?
Yes, I got a couple of things to point. So, got assessment and taxation of the mill rate report is expected to come to the next committee meeting. Approximately 269 resident and non-residential customers have withdrawn from their tips they pay. And then the second one is finance and administration finalizing March month and presentation out to the committee next meeting. Actually, finance covered impact of the 4 weeks ending April 1st, 2020, approximately 7,500. And procurement comparative bids are being processed with the language in incorporate physical social distance as a contractor working in the city building. And then the last one is GICIT surveillance camera were installed last week in the reservoir monitor, which is a Glante already covered it. Fill level instruction administration. Transit security camera project set being the last week. That's about it for me.
Okay, thanks very much, Thanks, Councillor Minhas. Then we can move on next to my right here, Bylaw and Policy Review Committee, and Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I move the council adopt the minutes of the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee meeting held Tuesday, April 28th, 2020 as presented.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Do they look like they reflect the meeting accurately? I don't see anybody raising their hand, so I'll call for the vote to adopt the minutes as presented. All in favor? Thank you. It looks like Councillor Blackburn is away, so we will move on. Councillor O'Toole, anything you wanted to highlight from that set of minutes?
Yeah, I'll just kind of give a brief overview for those that don't have the minutes in front of them. We did have a delegation from the Bear Creek Funeral Home regarding some of the changes that were proposed. And we also had 4 bylaws. Bylaw C-834, Parks and Recreational Area Bylaw. Then we have the Bylaw C-504, Boulevard Bylaw. Policy 605, Boulevard Use Permitting Policy. Bylaw C-1332, Cemeteries Bylaw. And Policy 608, Memorial Tree and Bench Policy. Now, some of these policies have been in place since the late 70s, and we just changed them, maybe positions, terminology, and stuff like that. New amendments or new items that have popped up over the years that we needed to rectify, and so that's where we spend most of our day talking about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. So then we'll move on to item 8.6, Councillor Palat and Pursuit of Excellence Committee. I think you chaired that one.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Given. I just make a motion that council adopt the minutes of the Pursuit of Excellence Committee held Wednesday, April 29th, 2020 as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Palat. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing none, then I will call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That would be 8 in favor. Councillor Plott, anything you want to highlight from that set of minutes?
Yeah, you bet. We started the meeting with $39,000, and then we started giving some money away. So we gave away $611 to the GP Rugby Football Club for hosting a clinic, $1,208 to for travel funding for cross-country skiing. $100 to Nikita Sutrick for judo travel funding. Apologize, I probably got that last name wrong. And then we did award two $1,200 Bob Neufeld scholarships. One to Brooklyn Johnson's for trampoline tumbling, and also another one to McKenna Pruden for cross-country skiing. Cross-country skiing. We did have a lot of conversation about the terms and reference of the Pursuit of Excellence. As we all are aware, this is a fairly old endowment fund now from the Canada Games back in '95, and terms and references have been talked about lots, but we had a pretty extensive chat about that and look forward to administration coming back to bring us some recommendations on what that could look like moving forward. So appreciate everybody at the committee that put their input in for that. Thanks, Mayor Gibbon.
Thanks, Councillor Platt. So I think that handles all of our committee business. We do have an item of correspondence today. Councillor C, in your package, under item 9.1, a letter from the MD of Greenview with respect to the tri-municipal industrial project, essentially informing the City of Grande Prairie that their council has voted to put the project on pause, I think is a term that they use. And so it appears that the MD is taking some individual action on that initiative. Then they are informing us of those actions that they're taking. It doesn't appear that they're asking for our support in those actions. They are ones that their council has chosen to take. I would look to council for any business arising, likely at minimum receiving a letter for information. There may be other direction to administration or anything else that's flowing out of it. Councillor Bressie. You're muted though, Councillor Bressie.
My apologies. I'd like to highlight that I do find this letter kind of confusing in terms of they've directed near-term projects to be put on hold, but at the same time they're saying it's outlining Greenview's desire to pause the ongoing development. And so I'm kind of confused on if they're asking us, hey, what's our desire? And are we going to talk to partners, or are we just, and are these on hold till we've had this conversation, or are they on hold till we decide? It's kind of confusing. I think that it might be worth us taking some action to get more clarity from them. But a question I had from administration, I know for administration, I'm not sure if Director Glavin or Mr. Galante are on the phone and if they know this, but I know we've been putting money towards the towards this project to action some deliverables. We haven't started getting money out of it yet, but we're putting money into it. And I'm just curious, any of the projects that got put on hold, has the city advanced money to pay for those yet?
Thanks, Councillor Bressie. Yeah, Director Glavin, obviously that question, and any other insight that you have on this issue from the Economic Development Department.
Sure. Over the last 3 years, or going back to 2017, the city has directly contributed $230,000 of money into the initiative. As of the last meeting that we had financial data for, I believe that money, all of that money had been committed to existing projects that were underway or that were in progress or had been completed. I'm not aware of the exact amount of money that would have been unspent as of right now, but that's something we could certainly request.
Okay, if I may ask one more question, Mayor Gibbon?
Yeah, I'll go to Councillor Platt and then come back.
It's related to that, though.
Okay.
So yeah, sorry, just related to that. So if I'm understanding the agreement right, if we've put in about $230 million, if I'm understanding right, we're doing, or sorry, $230,000, significant amount of zeros difference there, then we're doing 25% of the cost. So that means from all the municipalities, if I'm doing my math right, it would be about $1 million of the project so far. Am I remembering right?
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. So that would be direct municipal contributions from the partners. That wouldn't include any provincial grants that were received through the CARES program, of which I don't have the magnitude of what those were, but over $100,000 for sure in grant money from CARES.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and so I've got Councillor Platt and I think Councillor Clayton, but I think minimum 250. I think we've got 2 rounds of $250,000 grants from the province. So I think there's probably at least $500,000 of provincial CARES money in sort of over the term of the project at minimum. I remember at least those 2. Councillor Platt and then Councillor Clayton.
Thanks, Mayor Gibbon. Yeah, I think we're all a little bit surprised with this letter when we got it. similar to Councillor Bressy's conversation there, I'm just kind of curious if we know the financial impacts, because we were still in the midst of trying to have an assessment done on what money had been captured and collected in that area, and I don't think we ever got that finalized with the MD. So I'm not sure if we know that. And then I'm also, and maybe these are more questions for administration, but we know the financial impacts if we ever did get that information back. And then also, if we're concerned about the CARES grants that were coming were because we were doing this as a tri-municipal area, and I'm just a little bit fearful of what this looks like from the province's eyes of a relationship that they funded and just kind of paused. And I'm not sure if there's any concern for us politically, but I'm just wondering if administrations, how they think next steps look for the city.
Sure. Director Glavin?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Given. So we haven't communicated with them any of our questions or as of yet. We were given a brief heads up about 10 days ago that something was going to be coming our way, and then we received a letter last week regarding the pause of the project, which up until that point we weren't really sure what direction we were going to receive. But I think all of this would be useful for us to either respond to the letter or administration can certainly follow up on a number of the items of concern that have been expressed today and get additional information to report back.
Okay. Thanks. I'll leave it at that for now, Mayor Given, and if no other councillors look at making a motion, I'll circle back and make a motion, please.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Platt. Councillor Clayton?
Thanks, Mayor Given. Yeah, my questions are similar along the financial lines. I know there are some contracts with existing vendors, for example, facilitator. There was other work that was being done. I'd like to know the financial implications, if any, on those contracts. You know, because obviously I would assume with a pause, that means you pause everybody that's working on it. So therefore, the facilitator, et cetera, should be done. And so there will be some financial sort of, you know, let's have a balance sheet at the end of the day, close it all out if that's what the MD is suggesting. But we need to see what that looks like financially. As Councillor Plott mentioned, we're still waiting for an assessment on the land. There was some accounting updates that, you know, at the last meeting we talked about that we haven't seen. And, you know, as the largest shareholder of this project, they have the right to pause it. Is it a surprise to me personally? Absolutely. Is it unfortunate for the region? In my opinion, absolutely. I think that some answers and a discussion at a minimum is courteous and would be appreciated. I think that if it happens only at administration level, so be it. I'd prefer it at a committee level, and let's close this thing out, but let's have a discussion as to what happened and what's a pause mean? Does a pause mean till the end of this year? Does a pause mean until the MD is more comfortable financially? Like, it's just too many unknowns for me. So I don't know what the motion looks like this time. Obviously, to receive the letter for information is fine. I do think there are some opportunities for direction to come out of this in regards to getting a financial update and a better timeline of what a pause means in regards to this relationship, because you know, us, the county, the MD, all use political capital with the province, with other associations to back this entity and this opportunity, and now it's paused. So, I mean, I think that there needs to be some discussion at a minimum with administration. I would prefer it with committee level, but I think that we need to know more information, regardless of the fact that it's paused and we have no say in changing that. Thanks.
Yeah, I see you, Councillor Thies. Yeah, I would. So knocked you all over.
I felt it over here.
Yeah, as another member of the committee, I'd agree. The letter, you know, reading it, the second to last paragraph says, Greenview Council has indicated that TMIP should not proceed further, comma, utilizing the contracted project manager in 2020, comma, and has withdrawn the bulk of funding previously allocated to this project due to market conditions. So, you know, it's unclear exactly, you know, whether they're saying no work should proceed in 2020 using the contractor or the project itself. So I think what we need is to have, you know, a motion to receive for information and potentially a motion directing the mayor. I could see this being one, it is a council to council sort of conversation. I could see us requesting a TMIP conference call or committee meeting to get further clarity around the MD's intent and sort of the go forward basis, so that the city of Grande Prairie can assess our ongoing participation. We need to have some information to allow us to decide whether there's anything for us left to participate in, or if the county is, the MD is going to be continuing some kind of work, whether that's something we want to participate in or not, depending on what it is that they're sort of setting out. So I'd agree we need more information, and I think it's probably appropriate to have a motion directing the mayor to contact the MD of Greenview.
Because if nothing more, we put our ratepayers' money into an organization that I can tell you nothing about where it's at financially anymore, or what it means with our ratepayers' money, so.
Okay. Was there somebody else? I'm sorry, Councillor Thiessen, thank you. I knew I just remembered another hand.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Given. No, I was extremely disappointed to read this letter on Thursday evening, and I think it's pretty clear in the final paragraph that was submitted that has yet to be touched on. I'll edit it a bit. Let us hope that the effects of suppressive commodity pricing is short-lived, and we can continue to work together to enhance the future economic viability of the region together. So I think essentially what that statement says is, if oil is still going to be tanked, we're not going to do this. So I think I would encourage further discussion because I think we're going to need that clarity, because right now I'm having very strong hesitations about ever entering into another business arrangement with the MD. If, as Councillor Clayton said, we're taking our ratepayers' money and throwing it into a hole, we don't know where it's going. And the fact that they can pull out whenever is their right, but the fact that they did it without a lot of consultation or communication, and this is the format that they chose, to me, it just seems unprofessional. And I don't want to knock our neighbors, but sometimes people need approval, and I'm very disappointed by this. So I'll make a motion right now to receive the letter for information, and I'll look forward to voting on any subsequent motions.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Thiessen. So motion to receive for information, and then any other follow-up motions, action arising. Any discussion on or debate on the motion to receive for information? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Okay, that motion's carries unanimously. Any other motions arising? Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I really appreciate Councillor Thiessen's comments. I can't imagine doing a partnership, sending this kind of a letter via a letter, not with a face-to-face conversation. So my motion will be, and Mayor Given already kind of alluded to have the mayor reach out to the partners of the Tri-Municipal Industrial Partnership to set up a meeting ASAP with all board members. I think this is more than just a mayor, a Reeve, and a Reeve conversation. I think this is a board that's all sitting there. And I think we need to know, I don't even know where the county's at. Frankly, I haven't had an opportunity to talk to them. I'm sure they might be as shocked with this as we are. So I'm hoping that motion makes sense. Sorry, I'm not the best guy wordsmithing on the fly. So if Ms. Karbaczewski thinks there needs to be wordsmithing, or some council members want to change it a bit, I'm up for that. But the intent is that we need to obviously meet as a group as soon as possible as a board to talk about why this letter was even brought in and why we weren't discussing it before it was got to this point.
Sure. Maybe Councillor Plott, that would be something along the lines of council direct the mayor, contact the MD and the county to request a board meeting as soon as possible to discuss the future direction of the TMIP.
That sounds much better, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was basically what you said. Okay. Any other discussion on that point, or anything else that we wanted in terms of action arising from this? Seeing none, then we'll call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. And I think that handles our agenda for this first half of our day as I scroll through the long agenda package and back up to the top. We should have some motions to deal with our delegation business, our public delegations from earlier this afternoon. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Can I address both of them just to receive them each for information?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, that's so moved.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Peason. Any discussion or debate on that motion to receive our two delegations from Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers and Ms. Renee Charbonneau for information? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. We have no notices of motion, and so we will recess. We will come back together at 6 o'clock. We have a scheduled delegation from Nighthawk Year-Round Adventure Park, and then we will also do council member reports. So we'll see everybody. We're adjourned, and we'll see everybody back at 6 o'clock.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.